Welcome to a profound journey, where we will together turn the pages of one of humanity's greatest epics, not to search for a fairy tale, but to confront our own souls. Have you ever paused and asked yourself what would happen if, somehow, we had lost something priceless, a paradise we once possessed, even if only in our subconscious? And in this life full of trials, can we ever truly find it again? That question has haunted humanity for millennia, and it is powerfully, hauntingly portrayed in a work that I believe, whether you have read it or not, has already planted its seeds in our collective subconscious. Paradise Lost. Even its very title evokes an irreparable loss, a primordial tragedy, but more deeply, it is a story about choice, about freedom, and about the invisible battles taking place within each one of us. Imagine a world where perfection exists, a lush Garden of Eden where humans live without care. And then, everything collapses, not because of some typical villain, but because of a deeply complex being, a great rebel. From the epic lines of John Milton, we hear a powerful declaration, a line that has gone down in history, a manifesto that challenges all order: better to reign in hell than serve in heaven. These are the words of Satan, who abandoned supreme glory to claim dominion in darkness. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? A voice echoing from the depths of pride, the vow of someone who will never accept bowing down. It is not just the line of a demon in a story, but also an echo of rebellion within each of us, whenever we feel we are facing injustice, or when we long for absolute freedom, even at the cost of everything. And here is the question that truly troubles me, and perhaps will make you think as well: what happens if the greatest hero, the one with astonishing persuasive power and unshakable resolve, is also the most complex villain in our story? Satan in Paradise Lost is not a simple demon, but a character who carries tragedy, determination, and a perspective with which we can, strangely enough, often empathize. He is the embodiment of absolute free will, of defiance, even when that defiance leads to catastrophe. Is the line between righteousness and villainy, between right and wrong, really as clear as we think? Or is it possible that the one we call the devil possesses qualities so great they are terrifying? When we delve into the war between angels and demons, between God and Satan, we are not just exploring a grand cosmic battle. No, that is only the outer shell. More deeply, that battle is a powerful metaphor for the unending struggle between reason and emotion taking place inside each of us. Do you ever find yourself torn between what you know is right and what you want to do, between the voice of conscience and burning desire? That is your own personal version of the battle of Paradise Lost. It is the struggle between hope and despair, between the light of faith and the darkness of doubt. When we stand before an important choice, when we face a painful failure, or when we dream of a brighter future, we are reliving those epic moments. The battle is not only in heaven or hell, it is right inside your soul, in your daily decisions, in how you face temptation and search for meaning in your life. Therefore, I promise you, this will not merely be a journey through a dry classical literary work. Not at all. This will be an expedition into the depths of the human soul, a journey where we will dissect great questions about freedom, responsibility, forgiveness, and redemption. Together, we will explore why a story written hundreds of years ago can still touch our deepest fears, desires, and hopes today. Join me in stepping into the world of Paradise Lost, not just to read a book, but to see ourselves in it, to seek an answer to the central question: can we reclaim the paradise we have lost, or at least find a new meaning in our own journey? This is my invitation to you. Let us begin. Paradise Lost, not just an epic. Perhaps when you hear Paradise Lost, you immediately think of a massive, complex epic, full of biblical references and archaic, difficult language. You might even think, oh no, another dry religious lecture. But I am here to tell you, it is not that. Absolutely not. If you, like me, have ever been captivated by great stories about choice, power, downfall, and fragile hope, then Paradise Lost is not just a book, it is a mirror reflecting ourselves. This is a work whose core value does not lie in retelling a religious story, but in exploring the deepest corners of psychology and philosophy about human nature. Let us travel back to 17th century England, a tumultuous era when John Milton, a great poet, wrote this masterpiece. Picture a time when England had just endured a bloody civil war, a king had been executed, political ideals had collapsed, and hopes had been shattered. Milton himself, a passionate supporter of the Republic, had to confront personal loss and the downfall of the ideals he believed in. His life witnessed extreme ups and downs, culminating in his complete blindness during his peak creative period. In the physical darkness and the chaos of his times, Milton, with extraordinary intellect and iron will, cast light upon one of humanity's oldest stories, the origin of sin and the fall. This is not just an epic about Adam and Eve being expelled from paradise, but the tragic echo of a soul witnessing the collapse of both the nation he loved and his own inner world. He used the eyes of the soul to see into the deepest inner struggles, the human tragedies that never fade with time. So how will we approach Paradise Lost? Not as theological scholars, but as analysts of psychology and philosophy. Together we will dissect the characters in this work, not as rigid figures from scripture, but as vivid psychological archetypes, astonishingly complex, carrying profoundly human instincts. Let us talk about Satan, the most compelling character in the entire work. He is not merely the embodiment of evil. He is the symbol of burning ambition, towering pride, and a free will that wants to break all limits, even at the price of destruction. Satan is a brilliant leader, an extraordinary orator, a grand rebel whose magnetism is so strong that many readers find themselves empathizing with him. We will explore the deeper motives behind his rebellion, his self-deception, the loneliness of an exile, and the tragedy of a fallen angel who chose his own path. Then there are Adam and Eve, the first humans, embodiments of innocence, of choice, of vulnerability. They face temptation, their own weakness, and ultimately the consequences of a fateful decision, a decision that forever changes the destiny of all humankind. Their story is not merely about eating a symbolic forbidden fruit, but about painful awakening, about bearing responsibility for their freedom, about growing up through loss and regret. And God as well. We will look at him not only as the Almighty, but also as a philosophical concept of power, justice, forgiveness, and the meaning of the free will he grants to humans and angels. The dialogues between God and the angels in the work are profound philosophical lessons about the nature of freedom, justice, and mercy. One crucial point to clarify from the outset: this is not a catechism lesson, not a sermon about religious belief. The aim of this video is a deep, objective literary and philosophical analysis. We will explore major questions about human nature. Why do we fail? What is true freedom? Where does ambition lead us? What is the origin of evil? And is there any hope after the fall? These questions were asked thousands of years ago and still echo in each of our lives today. To help you more easily follow this challenging yet fascinating journey, I have divided the video into 12 main chapters. We will move from Satan's proud fall in hell to the magnificent creation of paradise, then to philosophical conversations between angels about free will and destiny, and finally to the tragedy of Adam and Eve, along with a vision of a future full of trials, yet brimming with hope for redemption. Each chapter will be a piece of the puzzle, helping us build the big picture of one of the greatest works of all time, a work whose influence still resounds powerfully in culture, art, and human thought to this very day. Prepare yourself for an intellectual adventure. I believe that whoever you are, whatever you believe, you will find in Paradise Lost fragments of your own self, of the questions we all wrestle with. It is not only a story about a lost heaven, but a mirror reflecting our own souls, our hidden desires, our deep-seated fears, and the choices that each of us must face in life. Now, let us begin exploring. Chapter 1. The Fall of Pride, the Origin of Evil. Today, we will embark together on a journey to explore John Milton's great epic Paradise Lost. This is not only a story about angels and demons, but also a profound dissection of human psychology, of choice, and of the nature of evil. There is a moment in the history of the universe when everything changes forever. A radiant angel, the bearer of light, makes a fateful choice, and from that point on, nothing is ever the same. He falls not only a physical fall from the heights into the depths, but a fall of the soul, of the will. And that is precisely the starting point of our Chapter 1, The Fall of Pride, the Origin of Evil. We will focus on Satan, perhaps the most complex and fascinating character in this work, and explore his psychology right after being expelled from heaven. What turned the resplendent Lucifer, the most beloved of the angels, into Satan the adversary, the irreconcilable enemy of the Creator? Before the rebellion, Lucifer was a being of absolute beauty, radiant with light and majesty. He stood at the head of the angels, a creature endowed with extraordinary intelligence and power. But beneath this splendid exterior, a toxic seed had begun to grow: pride. When the Creator proclaimed his Son as the Messiah, the one who would be exalted as equal in honor, Lucifer could not accept it. The very thought of bowing before anyone, even the Son of the Creator, ignited seething jealousy and arrogance in him. He could not accept second place, and from that, a large-scale rebellion erupted. The fall is not just a defeat in a heavenly battle. It is a radical transformation in Lucifer's nature. Once defeated and cast down into hell, he is no longer Lucifer. He is Satan the adversary, the one who bears an incurable wound in his heart and an iron will that will never submit. This transformation is not merely a change of name, it is a change of essence, from light to darkness, from love to hatred, from obedience to ceaseless rebellion. Even when submerged in the depths of hell, Satan does not waver. One of his most famous lines, a declaration both defiant and tragic, clearly captures this psychology: the mind in itself can make a heaven of hell, or a hell of heaven. This is not just a grandiose statement, but a proclamation of the supreme power of will and self-consciousness, however distorted it may be. Satan asserts that even if his body is imprisoned in fire and darkness, his mind remains free. He can create his own kingdom, turn misery into a kind of glory, a bitter independence. Looking more deeply, we see Satan dangerously deceiving himself. He not only accepts hell, but declares it his own kingdom, where he can reign freely, bound by no law other than his own will. It is a desperate effort to preserve dignity and power in total defeat. His pride does not allow him to acknowledge failure as failure. He must turn it into a form of victory, the victory of an unbroken will against imposed authority. His mind, instead of seeking repentance, looks for ways to justify and reinforce the path of evil he has chosen. Even in that catastrophic defeat, Satan still exhibits a terrifying charisma. He is a leader with magnetic appeal, a master of rhetoric who can rally the other fallen angels. His speeches do not merely spread anger, they are flames that kindle the spirit of resistance, promising a new war, a reckoning to come. He does not stir compassion or remorse, but hatred and a burning desire for revenge. This charisma, I believe, is a warning for us. A talented, eloquent leader can drive others toward destructive ends if driven by pride and hatred. They can manipulate emotions, transform despair into a blind will to fight. Satan is proof that charisma is not always tied to goodwill or justice. On the contrary, it can be an extremely dangerous tool in the hands of evil. The story of Satan's pride is not just an ancient myth. It contains profound truths about human nature. That pride exists within each of us. It is ambition unchecked, the refusal to acknowledge our limits, the belief that we are superior, more deserving than what we currently have. When we cannot accept the truth, when jealousy blinds us to the success of others, when we cannot admit our own mistakes, we are walking a path similar to Satan's. It is a path that leads to isolation, to choices that destroy ourselves and those around us. Pride, when left unchecked, can turn legitimate ambition into obsession, transform the desire for success into the willingness to use any means necessary to seize power, regardless of the cost. Therefore, when we look at Satan in Paradise Lost, we are not just looking at a classic villain. We are looking into a mirror reflecting the darkest corners of our own souls. Pride is the first seed of evil, the origin of rebellion not only against the Creator, but also against our own better nature. I hope you now have a deeper understanding of Satan's complex psychology and the role of pride in his fall. This is not just a story to read, but a lesson to ponder. Chapter 2. The Council of Hell, the Strategy of Revenge. Imagine this. After a cataclysmic shock, the fallen ones, now demons, gather in a massive hall, built by infernal magic at the heart of hell. This is not just a meeting, it is a political debate, a grand rhetorical performance, and more importantly, the birthplace of the most ruthless strategies of revenge. Their goal is crystal clear: how to continue the war against God after having been utterly defeated. And here, you will see the different faces of evil revealed. First to step forward, with a gigantic frame and a voice rumbling like thunder, is Moloch. Just hearing the name, you can sense the savagery and brutality, can't you? In ancient mythology, Moloch is a pagan god who demands child sacrifice, symbolizing cruelty and bloodlust. His strategy is brutally simple: total war, no mercy. Moloch argues that they have already lost everything, so what is there left to lose? Attack heaven once more, at all costs, with pure violence. He would rather be utterly annihilated than endure humiliation in hell. You see, this is the crudest face of evil: direct, reckless violence, unconcerned with consequences. It resembles the impulsive reaction of someone driven into a corner, who sees only destruction and has no long-term strategy. It is a kind of explosive, unsophisticated evil. In stark contrast to Moloch stands Belial. The very name suggests subtlety, doesn't it? Belial is the embodiment of laziness, pleasure-seeking, and cowardice disguised as reason. He is no less gifted in rhetoric, but proposes a completely different strategy: do nothing. Belial argues that they have fallen to the lowest point, but who can guarantee that God will not inflict even worse punishments if they continue to resist? It is better, he says, to accept their fate, grow accustomed to present suffering, and perhaps find some consolation in degradation. This is the insidiousness of creeping evil: laziness, indulgence amid suffering, and cowardice cloaked in logic. It is a kind of compromise with evil, transforming suffering into an acceptable, even interesting, state. Belial's evil is not violent, but slowly corrodes the will and turns us into slaves of endurance by rationalizing it. Then comes Mammon, whose very name says it all: greed and materialism. Mammon proposes a more pragmatic approach: forget about God, let us build our own empire right here in hell. He calls for exploiting the treasures, gold, and jewels hidden beneath hell's surface to create a kingdom of material wealth. Their aim is no longer to avenge themselves on God, but to enrich themselves, accumulating power and luxury in hell. This is evil wearing the face of materialism and corruption by wealth. It turns the purpose of existence into the accumulation of possessions, even in hell. They are willing to abandon all ideals in exchange for a prosperous life in hell, forgetting their original goal of overthrowing God. This kind of evil does not require bloodshed or laziness. It corrodes the soul through the seduction of material goods and worldly power. All of these proposals seem reasonable in one way or another, but none is cunning or effective enough to satisfy Satan. When Satan speaks, the very air seems to thicken. He listens with feigned attentiveness, but in his mind he already holds a horrifying plan. Satan will not wage direct war on God, but will strike at God's most vulnerable point: his new creation, humankind. He has heard rumors of a new world, a new race created by love and endowed with free will. Satan's goal is not slaughter, but corruption at the root, to turn human beings into traitors of their own creator. If humanity falls, heaven will suffer a wound more grievous than any direct assault. Human beings, with free will yet easily tempted, will become the perfect instrument of revenge. This is the pinnacle of malice. It is not Moloch's frontal brutality, nor Belial's laziness, nor Mammon's greed. It is a psychological strategy, a war for souls. Satan understands that the greatest pain for the Creator is not the rebellion of those who have already fallen, but the corruption of what he loves most, what he created with all goodwill. This plan is more effective, more sophisticated, and yields a far more bitter revenge. What is fascinating is that, although this is a council of evil, Milton portrays it very much like a secular parliament. Satan does not simply impose his plan, but must speak persuasively, must skillfully steer the assembly. He listens to other opinions, pretends to weigh them, but ultimately guides everyone toward his own plan, making them believe it is their own idea. This demonstrates that no matter how dark the purpose, the arts of politics and rhetoric remain powerful tools for rallying forces. It shows how those in power, even in hell, still need to create the illusion of consensus and shared purpose in order to maintain authority and advance their agenda. They use words to manipulate, to transform despair into motivation, and to unite others behind the darkest of goals. So, from the infernal hall of pandemonium, we have seen three clear faces of evil: the violence of Moloch, the laziness and cowardice of Belial, and the material greed of Mammon. And finally, the most sinister and effective strategy of all, Satan's plan to corrupt the human soul. This is a profound lesson on the nature of evil, not only as direct destruction, but also as inward decay, as temptation and subtle manipulation. In the next chapter, we will follow Satan on his journey through the gates of hell, heading toward earth, where the fate of humankind awaits. Will his plan succeed? Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss this dramatic journey. Chapter 3. The Immutable Throne. God's perspective. In the previous 2 chapters, we plunged into the abyss of hell, witnessed the rise of Satan and his fallen host, and heard their words seething with ambition, resentment, and thirst for revenge. We felt the darkness, the despair, and the defiance at the heart of the abyss. But today, let us, for a moment, forget that darkness and those ruthless schemes, and lift our gaze higher, far, far higher beyond every layer of cloud, straight into the blinding light of heaven. This chapter 3, titled The Immutable Throne. God's perspective, will take us into a completely different realm, where everything begins and ends, where the most complex concepts of free will, God's foreknowledge, and divine justice are determined. Imagine a scene that is the exact opposite of hell, a place where radiant light pours forth without ceasing, where there is no darkness, only majesty and infinite mercy. Absolute peace reigns there, hymns of praise echo, and at the center of all, on the eternal throne, is God. He reigns in glory, surrounded by angels and saints, witnessing everything that happens in the universe, from the most hidden schemes in hell to the destiny of humanity, soon to be decided. The astonishing thing is that even as Satan sows plots in hell, God already knows exactly what will happen. He foresees the fall of humankind, Satan's temptation, and the consequences it will bring. And here we come to a key point. We must distinguish clearly the difference between foreknowledge and predestination. God sees the future in advance. He knows every choice human beings will make. He knows that Adam and Eve, though warned, will fall. But this does not mean that he compels them to do so. Picture this: as I often say, you can know exactly what dish a close friend will choose from a menu without ordering for them. Your understanding of your friend allows you to predict accurately, but your friend still freely makes their own choice. Similarly, God, with his infinite omniscience, knows everything that will happen, but he does not intervene in such a way as to strip human beings of their free will. He wants love and obedience to come from hearts that choose freely, not from compulsion or from puppets on strings. Human free will remains intact. God grants them the capacity to choose, and it is precisely this capacity, along with the innocence and immaturity of Adam and Eve, that will lead to their fall. It is entirely their own choice, even though God already knows the outcome. So if human beings fall, if they voluntarily violate the divine command, what does divine justice require? Sin must be punished. This is an unchangeable law of the universe, the foundation of God's grand order. Disobedience cannot simply be ignored, or all law would become meaningless. But God is not only justice, he is also infinite mercy. He loves his creatures, loves the humans he created in his image. How can these two be reconciled? How can justice be upheld while mercy is still extended? How can humanity bear the consequences of its actions without being utterly destroyed, without losing forever the chance of salvation? This is where the picture becomes truly complex, and also where we see the pinnacle of love that Milton wants to convey. In that moment of stillness, as all of heaven contemplates humanity's fate, as justice and compassion seem to stand in tension, the Son steps forward. A radiant figure, full of love and humility. The Son is not forced by the Father. Not at all. The Son voluntarily, without a trace of hesitation, offers himself. He makes an unimaginable proposal to take upon himself the sins of humankind, to endure the punishment in their place, so that justice is satisfied and humans can still be redeemed. This is not a command, not an obligation. It is an act of absolute free will, driven by unconditional love for humanity, those who will fall, those who may never fully understand the magnitude of this sacrifice. This sacrifice is the bridge between justice and mercy. Justice is fulfilled because sin is paid for by an immeasurable sacrifice by the blood of the Son. Mercy is manifested because humans, though deserving of punishment, still have the opportunity to be saved, to return to God by the path the Son has opened. Think about it. A love so great that it is willing to bear the consequences of others' wrongdoing, even before those wrongs are committed. It is a powerful and weighty concept, and it is central to our understanding of justice and mercy from the perspective of an almighty being. God does not only command, he gives. He does not only punish, he forgives. And most importantly, he gives humans the path by which they may freely choose and seek salvation for themselves. Thus, from God's perspective, everything lies within a grand design in which free will is absolutely respected, and yet a path of redemption is prepared for those who choose it. He does not desire that anyone be lost, but he does not force anyone to be saved either. This is the nature of an almighty God, who is both perfectly just and infinitely merciful, a balance so absolute that our limited minds can hardly grasp it fully. Understanding these complex ideas is the key to truly feeling the depth of Paradise Lost. It is not just a story about demons and humans. It is a philosophical debate about the nature of existence, of choice, and of love. It shows us that even as hell is plotting, heaven already has a plan full of mercy and sacrifice. With the sacrifice of the Son accepted, the stage is now set for a greater tragedy, yet the tragedy unfolding on earth, where Adam and Eve will face their own destiny. In the next chapter, we will return to the beautiful Garden of Eden, where perfect happiness reigns, and witness the first moments of temptation and the fateful choices that forever change the fate of humankind. Chapter 4. Journey through chaos. A will beyond all limits. Welcome back to our journey, exploring the great epic Paradise Lost. If in the previous chapter we witnessed Satan's proud uprising and his acceptance of the fate of being cast into hell, then today we will step into a new chapter, a solitary yet far more brutal adventure. Our chapter 4 is titled, Journey Through Chaos. A will beyond all limits. After rallying his forces and proclaiming a new objective, Satan, with an iron will that nothing can shake, decides to undertake by himself a journey that no mortal, nor even any heavenly being, has ever dared to imagine, to find a path from the darkness of hell to the newly created Garden of Eden, where, according to prophecy, God has placed his newest creatures. But that path is not a pre-existing trail. It is a plunge into a still formless universe, a realm of raw, unshaped matter. That realm is chaos. The moment Satan passes through the gates of hell, he is confronted with a scene that would make even the bravest demons tremble. Not eternal flames or bottomless chasms, but an infinite sea of disorder, where undivided elements crash against one another in an endless battle. This is a realm of primitive matter, not yet given form, where everything can potentially exist, but nothing truly has shape. It is like a cosmic nightmare, where destruction and creation happen simultaneously, without any order at all. Yet more terrifying than that scene are the guardians of the gates of hell, who are also his own offspring, sin and death. You may remember from the previous chapter that when Satan first rebelled, sin emerged from his head, a grotesque daughter with the upper body of a beautiful woman and the lower half made of a pack of ravenous dogs. And from the incestuous union between sin and Satan himself, death was born, a horrifying figure that is merely the shadow of destruction, lacking any clear form beyond a scythe and a crown. When Satan meets these two children again, it is not merely a physical encounter, it is also a confrontation with the consequences of his own actions. Sin and death are the embodiment of all the evil Satan has unleashed. Sin, the grotesque yet seductive daughter, opens the way to destruction. Death, who devours all and spares no one, is the ultimate result of sin. They are the chains that Satan has forged for the universe. But even when faced with these dark manifestations of himself and their warnings about the immeasurable consequences they bring, Satan's will does not waver. He persuades sin and death to open the way, promising them a new kingdom to rule once he succeeds. And so, the journey begins. Picture Satan alone, flying through a boundless, undefined space, with no foothold, no guiding light, only the roaring of colliding, exploding elements. This is not a journey guided by any map or compass. It is a groping through despair, a struggle against infinity and non-existence. Milton describes it like a sailor lost in a shoreless ocean, steering only toward a faint star, uncertain whether it truly exists. What keeps Satan from collapsing? What enables him to endure the horror of chaos, the hopelessness of an endless quest, and the utmost exhaustion? It is willpower. An iron will, an unshakable resolve, focused entirely on a single goal: to take revenge on God, to ruin his work. Satan has no physical compass, but he has an inner compass more powerful than any instrument: his thirst for revenge, his indestructible pride. And this is the key point we must reflect upon. Satan's solitary journey through chaos, his confrontation with his own offspring, and with the infinity of the cosmos, is a powerful metaphor for the strength of human will. You see, however condemnable Satan's purpose may be, the will he displays is still awe-inspiring. It shows that when a powerful will is entirely focused on a single goal, it can overcome all obstacles, all physical and mental limits. Nothing is impossible if the will is strong enough. We may hate Satan and condemn his actions, but we cannot deny that extraordinary resilience. It is like a mirror reflecting the terrifying potential hidden within every human being. It is a power that can build the greatest things, but also destroy what is most precious. So what about us? When I look at Satan's journey, I cannot help asking, what are our passion and determination serving? Where are we directing our will? Are we using that power to build and create good values, or are we unintentionally channeling it into petty goals, personal vendettas, or meaningless pursuits? The power of will is not inherently good or evil. It is a tool, a driving force. What matters is the hand that wields it and the purpose it serves. Satan's journey through chaos is a profound reminder that perseverance can turn the impossible into possible. It can help a lost soul find a path, transform a weak person into a strong one, and bring seemingly distant goals within reach. At the same time, it raises a serious moral question when our will pushes past all limits. Is it leading us toward a heaven or a hell of our own making? Thank you for listening. In the next chapter, we will explore a completely different world, a world of purity and innocence, the Garden of Eden, where Satan finally sets foot and begins to prepare his dark plan. Don't miss it. Chapter 5. The Garden of Eden, a perfect and fragile world. After the previous chapters filled with the chaos of hell, the tragic downfall of Satan, and the majesty of the Creator, we now step into a completely different realm. Take a deep breath and relax your mind, because we are about to enter a place where every idea of beauty, perfection, and fragility converges. This is Chapter 5 of our series, The Garden of Eden, a perfect and fragile world. Let us imagine together. You can close your eyes or simply let your mind wander freely. After the dark, cold, fiery tones of hell, a completely new picture unfolds before us. It is the Garden of Eden. This is not just a garden. It is a miniature world where nature is woven from the purest threads of splendor. The sunlight in Eden is not harsh but gentle, gilding every lush green leaf. The air is so pure, you can almost feel the fragrance of thousands of flowers blooming together, none overpowering the others, all blending into a fragrant symphony never known before. Streams murmur crystal clear, trickling over smooth pebbles like a soothing lullaby. The trees here do not simply provide shade, they are heavy with ripe, glistening fruit in every shade of color, ready to offer their finest sweetness. The animals in Eden live in perfect harmony. You will see lions lying beside lambs, birds perched on the shoulders of giraffes. No hunting, no fear, no suffering. Everything is part of a chain of life bound together by the thread of absolute peace. This is not a wild forest, but a garden meticulously tended by the Creator himself, where everything has a purpose and every creature lives at ease, without worry. It is a place we only dare to dream of, a symbol of primordial perfection. At the heart of this perfection, we find two first inhabitants, the first humans, Adam and Eve. Their image in Eden, before the fall, is one of the purest, most beautiful depictions of love and innocence I have ever read. They are completely naked, yet without a trace of shame, because their nakedness symbolizes innocence, unburdened by social prejudice or worldly lust. The relationship between Adam and Eve is a love that is equal, pure, and full of respect. Adam does not see Eve as an inferior, nor as a possession. Eve is not Adam's shadow. They are soulmates, life partners, kindred spirits created to complement one another. They work in the garden together, talk together, and ponder the greatness of the Creator together. Their conversations are free of calculation and deceit. There is only sincerity, curiosity, and gratitude. They look at each other with eyes full of admiration, unconditional love, and deep understanding. It is genuine love, not yet stained by any fear of betrayal or loss. They are the only two people on earth, and they have everything they need in each other and in this perfect garden. My friends, in that perfect picture, there is always a focal point, a stroke of destiny. Among all the laws and blessings the Creator gives Adam and Eve, there is only one commandment, one boundary so simple, it is almost unbelievable. They must not eat the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, standing in the middle of the garden. You may ask, why does such a simple law exist? Why, in a perfect world, is there this one prohibition? This is the crucial point for understanding free will and obedience. The Creator does not want his creatures to be mere puppets obeying commands without choice. He wants Adam and Eve to love and obey him because they choose to do so, not because they are forced. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil is not a trap. It is a test, a symbol of free will. If they eat its fruit, they will gain knowledge but at the same time lose their innocence, lose their direct, unshielded relationship with the Creator. It is a choice between obedience that leads to eternal happiness in innocence, and disobedience that leads to knowledge but also to suffering and death. This commandment is also a reminder that even in the greatest perfection there is a boundary, a fragility. The happiness of Adam and Eve, their innocence, the harmony of Eden, everything rests on a single condition: obedience. One small act, one wrong decision, can tear apart that veil of perfection and change everything. So we have journeyed through the dazzling beauty, pure innocence, and heartbreaking fragility of the Garden of Eden. We have witnessed a love untouched by stain, and a simple yet deeply meaningful test. But can this perfection stand firm against temptation? Can Adam and Eve preserve their innocent happiness? Or will they cross the boundary the Creator has set? Chapter 6. A warning from the angel: free will and responsibility. Hello everyone, we meet again on our journey through John Milton's great epic Paradise Lost. If in previous chapters we immersed ourselves in the cold depths of hell, witnessed Satan's proud defiance and that of his followers, and then soared to the radiant heaven where God the Father reigns, then today we will stand in a completely different setting, the Garden of Eden. Imagine a beautiful morning, birds chirping, flowers in full bloom, Adam and Eve enjoying a carefree life in the perfection that creation has granted them. They do not yet know sorrow or suffering, there is only love and pure innocence. Yet this absolute peace is about to be disrupted not by an unexpected disaster, but by a warning. In his boundless mercy, God decides to send a special messenger to Adam. That is the Archangel Raphael, one of the highest and wisest angels. Raphael does not come to condemn or punish, but to warn, to equip Adam with the necessary knowledge about the danger lurking nearby, a danger that, in his innocence, Adam cannot yet imagine. Raphael, the storyteller of heaven's history, Raphael is not just a messenger, he is a master storyteller. Over the course of a long afternoon beneath Eden's cool green canopy, Raphael recounts a shattering story to Adam: the war in heaven. This is not a story for entertainment but a detailed, full account of humanity's potential enemy. Raphael begins by explaining the cause of the war, the pride and jealousy of a gifted angel named Satan. when God the Father proclaimed the Son as supreme, the one whom all angels must honor. Satan refuses to accept this. He cannot bear to bow before anyone he deems inferior. So he rallies 1/3 of the angels in heaven, stoking resentment and rebellion in them. Raphael tells of cataclysmic battles, of Satan's almost insane stubbornness and that of his rebel host, but also of the immeasurable power of the Son and the loyal angels led by the Archangel Michael. He tells how Satan and his followers are ultimately defeated and cast into the abyss of hell. The purpose of this story is not entertainment. It is to help Adam clearly understand his potential enemy. Raphael portrays Satan not merely as a defeated rebel, but as a soul full of hatred, cunning, and deception. Satan will do everything he can to sabotage God's new creation, and Eden is now the target. A clear warning. No room for naivety. After recounting the war, Raphael issues a specific warning. He does not beat around the bush, but goes straight to the point. There is a tree in the garden, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, whose fruit God has forbidden Adam and Eve ever to touch or eat. If they do, death will be the consequence. This is crucial for debunking the notion that Adam and Eve are merely innocent victims, unaware of the danger. Raphael clearly tells Adam that Satan is seeking to take revenge on God by tempting them into sin. He warns Adam about Satan's cunning, his ability to disguise himself and to lie. Adam is made fully aware of the enemy's nature, of the danger of the forbidden tree, and of the consequences of disobedience. This warning is so clear, down to the finest detail, that Adam fully understands it. He cannot say he was not informed or that he did not know. Raphael's visit, his recounting of the whole story, and his direct warning are acts of infinite mercy. They show that God does not want Adam and Eve to fail. He wants them to succeed, but that success must come from a conscious choice, from voluntary obedience, not from coercion or ignorance. True freedom when knowledge walks with responsibility. So what is free will in this context? Is God laying a trap for Adam by putting a forbidden tree there and then warning him about it? Not at all. Raphael explains that God gives Adam and Eve free will so they can choose love, obedience, and loyalty. If they had no choice, their love and obedience would be meaningless. They would be merely instinctive reactions, not conscious decisions. True freedom is not ignorance or the naive innocence people often mistake it for. True freedom is the ability to make the right choice once you have enough information and understand the consequences. Adam and Eve are given the intelligence to think, analyze, and choose. Raphael provides them with all the essential information they need to exercise that freedom responsibly. It is like being given a detailed map that clearly marks dangerous roads and possible traps, yet the choice of which path to take remains entirely yours. God does not want puppets. He wants free beings capable of choosing the good, and that choice, when made with full awareness, is what truly matters. Every choice comes with responsibility. Raphael's warning is not an arbitrary prohibition, but a reminder of the boundaries of freedom. Freedom is not doing whatever we want without facing consequences. True freedom is understanding the consequences of each action and still choosing to do what is right. Raphael completes his mission. He speaks to Adam as a father speaks to his child, as a teacher to a student. He has given Adam the most precious gift, knowledge. Now Adam knows about Satan, about his wicked nature, about the forbidden tree, and about the consequences of disobedience. This chapter, a warning from the angel, is full of meaning. It is not just the prelude to the tragedy that is about to unfold. It is also a powerful statement of Milton's philosophy. Human beings are not victims of fate. They are agents of their own choices, and with free will comes immense responsibility for every decision they make. So how will Adam and Eve choose with this gift of knowledge? Will they overcome temptation, or will they fall? That is the question we will seek to answer in the chapters to come. Take a moment to think about your own daily choices. Do we always make decisions based on full information and understanding, or do we sometimes let ignorance or fleeting emotions lead the way? Free will is a great gift, but it is also a burden of responsibility that each of us must bear. Thank you for listening. See you in Chapter 7. where the destiny of humankind will be decided. Chapter 7. Eve's Temptation, the psychology of the lie. We have already explored Satan's tragic fall and his schemes of revenge. Today we will step into one of the most classic and haunting sections of the work, Eve's Temptation, or more precisely, the psychology of the lie. This is not just an ancient story about eating a forbidden fruit. It is a profoundly deep lesson on how the human mind is manipulated, on our deepest vulnerabilities, and on the subtle nature of deception. Let's dive into the fateful conversation between Eve and the serpent, which in reality is Satan in disguise. 1. Satan's strategy, the art of master-level psychological manipulation. When Satan approaches Eve, he is neither aggressive nor threatening. He is a master artist of manipulation, and his strategy unfolds step by step, with great finesse. First comes flattery. He begins with sweet words, praising Eve's beauty and grace in an exaggerated way, even saying she deserves to be worshipped as a goddess. Just think about it. How would a creature who has never heard such compliments, in an utterly pure world, react? Surely this flattery softens Eve's heart, creates a special feeling, a kind of attention she may never have experienced before. Praise, even when false, has the power to open the door of the soul. Next, and this is the crucial step, Satan begins to sow doubt about God's words. At first, Eve seems firm, repeating God's command that they must not eat the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, or they will die. But Satan skillfully reframes this command as an injustice. He argues that God prohibits the fruit because he is afraid. Afraid of what? Afraid that humans, once they taste it, will become his equals, possessing knowledge and power. He declares confidently that you will not surely die. God could not harm such beautiful creatures as you. Instead, eating this fruit will open your eyes, making you like the divine, knowing good and evil. This is a classic inversion technique, turning a prohibition into a hidden benefit, turning an act of protection into an act of oppression. He strikes at a natural instinct of human beings, the desire to know, to surpass limits. Finally, he promises power and knowledge. Satan paints a seductive vision. Eve will no longer be limited by innocence, but will be elevated to a higher station, able to decide for herself, to understand for herself. He promises liberation, elevation, a power that God is supposedly hoarding for himself. This is an incredibly tempting promise for anyone who feels lacking or constrained. 2. Eve's motives. Where temptation finds its way in it, is no coincidence that Eve is the first one tempted. Milton portrays her weaknesses and inner motives with great subtlety, making her the perfect target. One of the most obvious motives is curiosity. Eve is a new being in a completely new world. She has a natural desire to explore and understand. When Satan raises questions and arguments that shake her faith, her curiosity is stirred. She wants to know whether what the serpent says is true. Is there a kind of knowledge she is being deprived of? Another motive, though somewhat sensitive to mention, is crucial to the analysis, the desire for equality with Adam. Previously, Eve sometimes feels dependent on Adam, created from his rib, guided by him. Perhaps she yearns for independence, for asserting her value as his equal. The serpent's promise of knowledge and power may touch this latent desire, offering a path for her to rise up not merely as a companion, but as a self-determining, knowledgeable being. And finally, the longing to become godlike. This is the peak of temptation. The serpent does not merely promise knowledge, but knowledge that confers divinity. Who would not wish to become greater, more powerful, more understanding? Eve, though the most perfect creature formed by God, is still human. The desire to transcend her own limits, to reach a higher plane of existence, is a deep-seated instinct. Satan strikes this weak spot, turning a legitimate longing for growth into a path toward pride and ruin. 3. The nature of the subtle lie, a grain of truth and deep-rooted insecurity. The most terrifying thing about Satan's lie is that it is not entirely false. It contains a grain of truth, blended with falsehood in an extremely skillful way. For example, the serpent says you will not die. Physically speaking, Eve and Adam do not drop dead the moment they eat the fruit. But they do die spiritually, die to innocence, die to their unblemished relationship with God. This is truth distorted, a promise interpreted in a way that benefits the deceiver. More importantly, these lies exploit the deepest insecurities within us. Even though Eve lives in a perfect world, are there moments when she feels lacking, less knowledgeable, or limited? Satan perceives and exploits those very human feelings. He does not create these insecurities but amplifies and makes them urgent. The same is true in our modern lives. The most persuasive advertisements, the sweetest promises, the most misleading propaganda often rely on a tiny kernel of truth that is then blown out of proportion and, most importantly, they strike at our fears, desires, and hidden insecurities, which we ourselves may not fully recognize. We want to be more beautiful, richer, smarter, more acknowledged. And the deceiver weaves a story around exactly those desires. At the end of this chapter, we do not merely watch Eve fall. We also receive a profound lesson in human psychology. It reminds us of the power of words, the importance of healthy skepticism, and the need to understand our own inner weaknesses so we do not become prey to the most subtle lies. Eve's story is not a tale of condemnation, but a warning. It helps us see more clearly the nature of temptation and how it operates not only in the Garden of Eden, but in our daily lives today. Thank you for listening. See you in the next chapter, where we will witness the devastating consequences of this choice for Eve, Adam, and all of humanity. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the upcoming parts. Chapter 8: Sin, Shared Love or Weakness. We now move into Chapter 8 of our journey decoding Paradise Lost, a chapter filled with turmoil and perhaps the most heartbreaking moment in Adam and Eve's story. As we know, Eve has eaten the forbidden fruit. She has fallen. Now the most painful scene unfolds. Adam sees Eve. Not the radiant, innocent Eve of the early days, but an Eve with a changed face, eyes glittering with excitement mixed with an indescribable panic, and in her hand is the undeniable evidence of betrayal. Milton paints a haunting picture of Adam when he realizes everything. He was not there to stop her. He had left her alone, and now he must face the consequence of that weakness and of Eve's act itself. This is the moment when Adam confronts the most terrible inner struggle of his life. On one side is absolute loyalty to the Creator, to the clear command not to touch the forbidden fruit. This command is not just a rule, it is the foundation of his entire existence, the proof of God's love and power. To betray God is to betray himself, to betray the very meaning of his life. On the other side of the scale is his love for Eve, his wife, his only companion, his other half. Seeing that Eve has fallen, Adam knows she will face death and destruction. How can he live without her? How can he endure watching her be condemned while he survives, alone in a paradise that would become empty and meaningless? Adam reasons with himself, and perhaps with Eve, that he cannot live without her. His words echo in my mind like a tragic vow. I cannot let her die alone. I cannot accept a life where she no longer exists. Is this an act of ultimate love, or a dependence so deep that it becomes weakness? Let us think about the complexity of love and dependence that Milton explores here. Is true love the willingness to sacrifice everything, even eternity, to remain beside the one you love, no matter what they have done? Or is it a kind of selfish love, where the fear of loss overwhelms all reason and responsibility? Adam appears to equate Eve's presence with his own existence. Her loss is, for him, equivalent to his own annihilation. Is this the deep nature of human love, the capacity to bind us so tightly that we are willing to give up everything for the other? I cannot help but wonder in that moment, did Adam still think of God, or was his mind filled only with Eve? And here we see the crucial difference between their sins. Eve is deceived by Satan. She is seduced by the promise of knowledge, of becoming like the divine. Her weakness lies in her innocence, inexperience in the face of evil's craftiness. She does not fully understand the consequences. Her vision is clouded by temptation. But Adam is not deceived. He hears Eve's entire account. He sees the change in her. He knows clearly God's command and the consequence of eating the fruit. Adam chooses with full awareness, eyes wide open and heartbreaking, and yet he still decides to eat. He chooses human love over divine loyalty, chooses to die with Eve rather than live eternally without her. Milton does not grant Adam any excuse of deception. Adam is a mature man, fully conscious, making a decisive choice. And when Adam eats the fruit, what is the immediate result? Both feel a new heat move through their bodies, a profound inner change. Their innocence is replaced by lust. The purity of their love is stained by physical craving. Milton portrays them like drunkards, swept into a frenzy of the senses. They no longer look at each other with the carefree, innocent gaze of pure love. Instead, there is desire and a new awareness of each other's bodies, something they had never considered before. And after lust comes shame. For the first time, they feel naked. Previously, their nakedness symbolized innocence, nothing to hide, no shame. Now it becomes a source of embarrassment and vulnerability. They hurry to cover themselves with fig leaves, an act symbolizing the loss of their inner paradise, the loss of peace in their souls. Their love, once the exemplar of perfection, is now polluted by lust and shame. The burden of sin is shared. So what is Adam's act? Supreme love, willing to sacrifice everything for the beloved, including his soul and eternity. Or a painful failure in his role and responsibility as head, as one whom God gifted with wisdom and power to protect. Milton does not give us an easy answer, and that is the beauty of this work. He invites us to ponder for ourselves, to question the nature of love, choice, and sin. This is the moment when humans choose human love over divine love, and the price is the loss of paradise. But the story does not end here. The consequences of this sin, and the Creator's judgment, will be the subject of the next chapter. Consider this: if you were Adam, what would you do? Would you dare to choose the path of sacrificing everything to remain with the one you love, knowing it is wrong? Or would you choose the path of responsibility and loyalty to the Creator, accepting loneliness and the pain of loss? A hard question, isn't it? Chapter 9. The blame game. Humanity's first fracture. In the previous chapter, we witnessed the moment Adam and Eve reached for the forbidden fruit. In this chapter, we will delve into the immediate psychological fallout of that act, a consequence that, I believe, still echoes in each of us today: the blame game, humanity's first fracture. Let us rewind to that horrifying moment after Adam and Eve taste the fruit of prohibition. The moment when innocence shatters, making way for shame and guilt for the first time. They attempt to cover their nakedness with fig leaves, an act that symbolizes hiding themselves, not only from the outside world but from each other. Yet this shame is far from the end. Imagine this: after the passing intoxication of lust and the explosion of newfound sensations, a terrifying silence descends upon the garden. In that silence, a presence unmistakable begins to be felt. It is the sound of the Almighty's footsteps, walking in the garden in the cool of the day, as he has always done. But this time, there is no joyful welcome, only heavy silence. God calls out, his voice resounding yet filled with disappointment: "Adam, where are you?" And Adam, the man who once confidently stood before God, now trembles in fear, hiding himself. He answers, voice shaking, "Lord, I heard your voice in the garden, and I was naked, so I was afraid and hid." Up to this point, it is still personal fear, isn't it? But the crucial shift comes in the next line. God asks, "Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree I commanded you not to eat from?" And this is the moment the blame ball starts rolling. Adam does not hesitate. He points directly at Eve, and implicitly at God as well. "The woman you gave to be with me, she gave me the fruit, and I ate." You see, two targets with one shot. He not only blames Eve, but subtly suggests, "You gave me this woman, and she is the one who caused my fall." This is a blatant refusal of personal responsibility, a self-protective reflex we continue to see repeated. Then God turns to Eve. He asks, "What is this you have done?" And Eve, in turn, refuses to bear responsibility alone. "The serpent deceived me, and I ate." Once again, a refusal to own her actions. "It is not my fault, it is his fault, her fault, the serpent's fault." The serpent does play a role, but Eve still had a choice, and she chose. In that moment, the rupture is not only in the breaking of a command. It is the fracture of the sacred bond between humans and the Creator, and more importantly, between Adam and Eve themselves. The refusal to take responsibility is not an accidental reaction, it is one of the first and deepest manifestations of the human fall. It reveals the loss of trust, of absolute honesty they once had with each other, and with God. The ego begins to speak, hiding fault under a thin veil of shame and fear. Innocence is gone. Transparency is gone. Sound familiar? This blame behavior is not confined to Adam and Eve in the garden. It has become a built-in part of human nature, a pattern we still see every day in modern life. Think about it when you are stuck in traffic. Whom do you blame? Bad roads, incompetent authorities, the driver in front of you. When you fail at work, you blame colleagues, your boss, or the work environment. When a relationship breaks down, we often look for someone to blame instead of examining our own part in it. Oh, he is like this, she is like that, not my fault. It is a psychological defense mechanism, a way to shield our wounded ego from the pain of facing the truth. Blaming others or circumstances creates a false sense of safety, sparing us from confronting our own flaws and mistakes. But what is the cost of blame? It is the root of distance and conflict in relationships. When Adam blames Eve, he does not simply deny his own responsibility, he pushes her away. She, in turn, creates a similar distance when she blames the serpent. Blame builds an invisible wall between two people, destroying trust and understanding. It solves nothing. Instead, it sows seeds of resentment, misunderstanding, and ultimately separation. In the Garden of Eden, instead of facing the consequences together, admitting their guilt together, and seeking a way to repair, they choose the easier path, shifting the responsibility. That choice shatters the most beautiful, pure bond ever to exist between two human beings. It serves as a prophecy for countless conflicts, wars, and estrangements humanity will endure throughout history. So what do we learn from Adam and Eve? Perhaps the greatest lesson is courage, the courage to face our own mistakes, to take personal responsibility even when it is difficult or painful. Only when we own our actions can we truly understand ourselves, learn from our failures, and mend what has been broken. Taking responsibility is not a sign of weakness, it is a strength, the ability to actively shape our lives and relationships in a more mature and meaningful way. This chapter is a powerful reminder that even the smallest actions, seemingly just a bite of fruit, can bring deep and lasting psychological consequences. The seed of division has been sown, and from here, the journey of Adam and Eve, as well as all humanity, will turn in a completely different direction. Chapter 10, Judgment, an array of hope, a curse or a promise. Welcome to Chapter 10 of our journey through Paradise Lost. If Chapter 9 is the peak of the fall, the moment of decisive choice, then Chapter 10 is the immediate aftermath, judgment. But as is typical with Milton, even in the darkest moments, a ray of light appears, a ray of hope we will explore together. After Adam and Eve have swallowed the forbidden fruit, a terrifying silence settles over everything. Guilt and shame overwhelm them. Then a presence. God appears not in the blazing glory of creation, but in solemnity, perhaps sorrow. This is not a cold judge, but a father who must confront the disobedience of the children he loves and the one who led them astray. First comes the serpent, the tempter, the deceiver. The curse upon it is dreadful and deeply symbolic. It will crawl on its belly and eat dust all its life. A complete demotion from its original position, a permanent humiliation. Imagine from a creature that perhaps once carried dignity. It now must drag itself upon the ground, forever associated with lowliness. This is not merely physical punishment but psychological as well, striking at its proud nature. Then comes Eve, the first woman, who reached out her hand to pluck the forbidden fruit. The judgment upon her touches the heart of every woman. She will suffer intense pain in childbirth. This, as we know, has become an inescapable part of life, a burden carried by women across generations. But it is not only physical pain. Milton also points to the complexity of relationships. Her desire will be for her husband, and he will rule over her. This is a significant shift from the equality they once enjoyed in Eden, a loss of harmony and mutual balance. And then Adam, the first man, who chose to love Eve more than obey God. For Adam, the curse falls upon his work. The ground is cursed because of him. He will have to toil hard, sweating and struggling, to obtain his food. From now on, life will be an unending battle against thorns and thistles. no longer a self-sustaining paradise, but a harsh world where survival must be wrestled from the soil. Finally, a part of the judgment for both Adam and Eve, and for all humanity, is death. From dust you came, and to dust you will return. Immortality is lost, and death becomes an unavoidable part of the human condition. This is a tragic outcome that defines the fate of mankind from that moment forward, a future full of suffering, labor, and, ultimately, death. It sounds harsh, doesn't it? But here is where Milton's genius and God's mercy are revealed in the most unexpected way. Hidden within the curse upon the serpent is a sentence of prophecy that theologians call the Protovangelium, the first gospel, or the first promise of redemption. God says to the serpent, "I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and hers. Her offspring will crush your head, and you will strike his heel." A very short sentence, but of immense weight. Let's analyze this. The woman's offspring will crush the serpent's head. This is not just any conflict. Crushing the head is decisive victory, the destruction of the enemy's power, the permanent end of evil's dominion. And the offspring of the woman, not the offspring of man, but of the woman, hints at a special birth, a savior who will come from humanity, specifically from a woman. This is the first ray of hope, the first promise that the fall is not the final word. A redeemer will come to set things right, to defeat evil, to restore what has been lost. This makes me think deeply. Whether in literature, in history, or in our own lives, there seems to be a recurring pattern, even in the worst consequences, in judgments that seem irredeemable. There is always a seed of hope, a door to restoration, a path to redemption. Milton weaves this into Paradise Lost with great skill. He does not tell only a story of loss, but also one of resilience, divine mercy, and the promise of a brighter future, even when the road there is strewn with thorns. He teaches us that even when everything appears to collapse, we should look for small signs of hope, for promises hidden beneath suffering. Thus, chapter 10 ends in a dramatic contrast, harsh judgment that contains a promise of salvation, a curse that determines destiny, yet also functions as a pledge of restoration. This is how Milton shows us the complexity of God's love, justice, and compassion. Now Adam and Eve must face a world far harsher than Eden, but they are not utterly without hope. Deep within, they carry that promise like a small lamp flickering in the dark. And this is what we will explore in the upcoming chapters. They will leave the Garden of Eden, yet what will they carry with them? Let's wait and see in chapter 11. Thank you for listening. Chapter 11. The Vision of the Future, the Painful History of Humankind. Welcome back to our journey exploring Paradise Lost, a great epic whose deep layers of meaning we are slowly uncovering together. In the previous chapter, we witnessed the fateful moment when Adam and Eve fell, breaking the sacred covenant and opening the door for sin to enter the world. From this point on, everything has changed. The Garden of Eden is no longer their eternal home. The Archangel Michael appears, not only to carry out the decree of expulsion, but also to give Adam a strange gift, a kind of insight that perhaps none of us would want to receive, a vision of the future of humankind. Imagine you are standing there with Adam, watching the timeline of the future unfold before your eyes like a grand, tragic film. This is not entertainment. This is history, the legacy of the very sin Adam has committed. The purpose of this vision is not to punish Adam with horror, but to teach him about the heavy consequences of his actions and, above all, about the necessity of faith and hope. The opening of the vision, the first pain of family, the vision begins. Not long after Adam and Eve are expelled, their two sons are born, Cain and Abel, the first light of a human family, but that light is quickly overshadowed by the darkness of sin. Adam witnesses Cain, his firstborn, overcome by jealousy and rage, raising his hand to kill his own brother Abel. Put yourself in Adam's place for a moment. This is the first time he sees death, and it comes from the hands of his own offspring. A sobbing grief tears his heart. Adam has tasted the pain of loss before, but this pain is infinitely worse. He watches an elder brother kill his younger brother, innocent blood spilling onto the ground. He understands that this pain is the legacy of his own sin, the first bitter fruit of disobedience. His heart feels crushed by remorse and horror. The escalation of sin, the great flood time passes, and the vision continues. Humanity does not learn its lesson. Sin not only fails to diminish, it spreads, turning the world into an abyss of corruption and violence. Michael shows Adam a world filled with lawlessness, where people live in debauchery, greed, and brutality. Each evil act is like a fresh cut into Adam's soul. He watches the gradual degradation of the generations that come after him. Then a divine wrath descends. The great flood. Adam collapses, his eyes glazed as he watches hopeless souls struggling in the raging waters. He sees the water rise, drowning everything, washing the world clean of sin. He sees Noah and his family on the ark, a faint ray of hope, but the overall scene is still one of terrifying destruction. Despair engulfs him, not only because of the death of countless beings, but because he realizes how far his descendants, humankind, have fallen to merit such a dreadful punishment. He feels personally responsible for all these tragedies, a burden almost too heavy to bear. Human pride, the Tower of Babel. Then, as things begin to stabilize, humanity once again falls into the trap of pride. Michael shows Adam a grand yet foolish project, the Tower of Babel rising high, a symbol of human arrogance and ambition. They want to reach God with their own hands, to build a path to heaven without his guidance or grace. Adam sees people working frantically, driven by a will that defies all limits. But instead of touching heaven, they are scattered. God confuses their language, turning cooperation into chaos, unity into division. Adam clearly sees the futility of this effort, the pain of separation and misunderstanding sown among people. He realizes that even after bitter lessons, humans remain proud and refuse to submit to the will of the Most High. Adam and the awakening from Michael. Adam can endure no more. He bows his head, tears streaming down, the weight of all human history pressing on his shoulders. He feels despair, anguish, and profound remorse. Everything he sees appears to be a legacy of suffering, violence, and death, all stemming from one single mistake made by him and Eve. Then a deep, steady voice speaks beside him, the voice of the Archangel Michael. Michael says, "Do not despair, Adam. This vision is not to punish you, but to teach you, to help you understand the consequences of disobedience, of sin. But more importantly, it shows you the necessity of faith, of compassion, and that the path to redemption is always open." Michael explains that although sin has spread, God's will is not permanent destruction. He preserves the righteous, the small rays of hope in the darkness. He still has a greater plan, a plan of redemption. Michael continues to show Adam bright points in the future, the appearance of righteous people, promises of salvation, and finally the sacrifice of the Redeemer, though not yet named. Adam senses a faint hope glimmering amid the thick darkness of history. The final lesson, the lesson Adam receives from this vision, is not merely awareness of sin, but a deep humility. It forces him to face his legacy, yet it also grants him the wisdom to understand that even in the deepest depravity, there remains a path toward forgiveness and grace. It is the path of faith, compassion, and sacrifice. This vision prepares Adam to face life outside the Garden of Eden, not with utter despair, but with a renewed understanding of the nature of good and evil, of the resilience of the human spirit, and of God's promise of redemption. What about us? When we look at our own history, do we see similar visions of repeated mistakes? What can we learn from Adam's painful awakening? Chapter 12. The inner paradise. Leaving Eden to find oneself. We have traveled a long road together, a grand and tragic journey through the mighty verses of John Milton's Paradise Lost. We have witnessed the fall of Lucifer, the formation of hell, and the tragic fall of humankind. Now we stand at the final moment, a moment that, in my view, is the heart and soul of the entire story. The moment when the first two human beings on Earth must face the harshest truth, but also a new beginning full of potential. Leaving Eden. Imagine the scene. The Archangel Michael, majestic yet filled with regret, leads Adam and Eve out of the garden. The eastern gate of Eden, once radiant and teeming with life, is now guarded by flaming angels and a blazing sword, forever closing off the way back. The last image Milton paints before ending his epic is disarmingly simple, yet carries immense emotional power. Adam and Eve, hand in hand, their steps heavy but not hopeless. They no longer possess their original innocence and purity. They have tasted the forbidden fruit, learned of good and evil, felt shame and loss. The world before them is a strange land, wild and full of trials. No angelic walls of protection, no tree of life bestowing blessing, no eternal peace. Only the two of them, exposed and vulnerable before an uncertain future, facing life and its new challenges. But there is something undeniably beautiful in that image, isn't there? Even though they have lost everything they once had, they still have each other. Their bond, the love they share, is the first and most important baggage they carry into this unfamiliar world. This is not an ending, but a transformation, the beginning of an entirely different journey. And before they step through the gate that is closed forever behind them, the archangel Michael, who has seen it all, gives Adam a final counsel, a prophecy, a statement that, to me, is the heart of Paradise Lost and the message Milton wishes to convey to each of us. Michael says to Adam, a paradise within you, far happier. Let that sink in. Michael does not say they will never find happiness again. He says they can find something even better. Not in a divine garden bestowed from outside, but within their own inner being. This is where we realize that the loss of material paradise is not a cruel ending, but a beginning. It marks the start of the truly human journey, the journey of growth, self-knowledge, and spiritual seeking. Previously, their happiness was given to them easily, without effort. Now they must build it themselves. They must learn to face mistakes, suffering, choices, and the labor required to survive. In this very process, they will develop a sense of morality, spiritual values, compassion, and resilience. The loss of physical paradise becomes the catalyst for seeking deeper spiritual meaning, a process that we, the descendants of Adam and Eve, are still continuing to this day. Eden was a place of effortless perfection. The world outside is where perfection must be struggled for. And it is in that struggle that true value is forged. So what is this inner paradise Michael speaks of? It is not a specific location on a map, not a physical destination we can travel to. It is a state of the soul. A soul cultivated by virtue, by faith in something greater than ourselves, and above all, by love. The love that Adam and Eve still hold as they leave Eden, love not only for each other, but for life, for hope, for the possibility of overcoming adversity. When we live with compassion, integrity, and a steadfast will to face hardship, when we maintain faith in higher values and know how to love those around us, we are building our own paradise, brick by brick. This is a paradise that no external force can destroy, no physical garden can equal, because it lies deep within each of us. The final lesson from Paradise Lost, especially from this farewell to Eden, is profoundly moving. Paradise is not a place to go to, not merely a physical destination. It is a state to be attained, a state of peace, happiness, and meaning that we create for ourselves by living a life of morality, faith, and love. No matter what challenges life throws at us, no matter how much we lose, we always retain the ability to return to the inner garden. The garden no one can ever take from us, the garden we ourselves cultivate every day. So the question for us is, how are you tending your inner garden? Think about that. Thank you for accompanying me in this chapter, and for exploring the timeless messages of this great literary masterpiece, 7-Day Action Plan, Building the Inner Paradise. Hello. We have journeyed together into Paradise Lost, a great work not only about the story of Adam, Eve, and Satan, but also about the eternal inner struggle within each of us. You know, every time I reread it, I ask myself, how do we avoid losing our own paradise? How do we build it firmly within our souls, no matter how stormy life becomes? And so I drew up a plan for myself. Just a small challenge, 7 days. Consider this your own mini journey to turn Milton's lessons into practical action. Ready? Day 1 and 2. Identify your serpent in Paradise Lost. The serpent is a specific character, but in real life, our serpent often hides in much more subtle forms. It might be that whispering voice in your head saying, "You're not good enough," "You're not worthy," or that this is too hard. Or those familiar excuses, "I don't have time," "I'll deal with it tomorrow," or "it's someone else's fault." It can also be the small daily temptations that distract you from your bigger goals, like endlessly scrolling social media instead of focusing on important work, or choosing short-term comfort instead of effort for a better future. The challenge for these 2 days is this: become a detective of your own mind. Carry a small notebook or open a notes app on your phone. Every time you catch a negative thought, an excuse, or a temptation that makes you step back from your goals, write it down. Don't judge it, just record it. Name your serpent. What is it? What does it say to you? What does it want you to do? The goal is not to blame yourself, but to identify the real enemy, to see clearly the invisible strings that bind you. Because you cannot fight what you cannot see, right? Just write it out. In as much detail as possible. You'll be surprised by how often these voices show up in your daily life. Day 3 and 4: practice taking responsibility after identifying the serpent. The next step is to face the consequences. Remember the scene where Adam and Eve blame each other after eating the forbidden fruit. Adam blames Eve, Eve blames the serpent. We do the same thing. It's very easy to blame circumstances, other people, or fate whenever we face difficulties. A failed project, a broken relationship, an unachieved goal. Our first reaction is often to look for some external factor to offload the burden of responsibility. But Milton teaches us that true freedom comes from taking personal responsibility. So, during these 2 days, I want you to choose one difficult situation you are facing, whether big or small. It could be a minor conflict with a company worker, a postponed personal goal, or some disappointment in your life. Instead of immediately thinking, "Why did this happen to me?" or "Whose fault is this?" pause for a moment. Take a deep breath and ask yourself, in this situation, what is within my control? What could I do differently to make things better? What can I learn from this to avoid repeating it or to improve in the future? This is not self-torment, it is self-empowerment. It's like taking back the steering wheel of your own life, affirming that you are the one driving, not a victim of circumstances. Inner strength begins here, at the moment you stop blaming and start acting. Day 5 and 6: nurture connection. One of the greatest losses after Adam and Eve were expelled from Eden was loneliness and the loss of perfect connection. Though they still had each other, the innocence and harmony of their souls were no longer the same. In today's noisy world, with hundreds of virtual connections on social media, we can still feel lost even when surrounded by people. True loneliness is not the absence of people, but the absence of understanding and genuine sharing. Our inner paradise is not only built from within, but is also strengthened by authentic, deep relationships. So, in these 2 days, I want you to spend quality time with someone who truly matters to you. It could be a close friend, a family member, or your partner, anyone you feel you can trust and share with honestly. What matters is this: put your phone down, turn off all distracting notifications. Give your full attention to listening to them. Speak no interrupting, no judging, just listening. And then share honestly your own thoughts and feelings, things you might rarely say out loud. You don't need some grand conversation or to solve a big problem. It's enough to be fully present and to exchange sincerely. You'll see that real connection is an incredibly powerful source of energy, a strong fortress against loneliness, and an essential part of a healthy inner paradise. Day 7: define your inner paradise. And now the last day, day 7. After facing the serpent, taking responsibility, and nurturing connection, it's time for you to define your own inner paradise. Milton once wrote a very famous line in Paradise Lost, that the mind can make a heaven of hell, a hell of heaven. So, what does your paradise look like? What truly brings you peace, happiness, and a sense of fullness? The challenge is: sit down somewhere quiet, take pen and paper, and write down 3 things that are most important in creating inner peace, happiness, and strength for you. These are not grand goals, but specific actions, habits, or mental states that you can feel and carry out. For example, it might be reading for 30 minutes every night, meditating 10 minutes each morning, spending time on a personal hobby like drawing, playing music, or gardening, or simply drinking a hot cup of tea and watching the trees outside your window every afternoon, journaling, or helping a friend when they're in need. Then choose one of those three things and make a specific plan to do it at least once next week. Turn paradise from an abstract idea into a concrete, tangible action. This is how you actively build and protect the peaceful garden in your soul. No one can take it from you unless you allow them to. By consciously creating these moments and positive habits, you are watering your inner garden, making it greener and stronger. This 7-day plan is not a magic solution to make all your problems disappear, but it is a powerful beginning. It is how you turn ancient stories into living lessons for your own life. How you begin the journey of building an inner paradise that no one can ever take away. Give it a try. And if you join this challenge, I would really love to hear your story. Share your experience in the comments below. Let's learn together. Summary of 3 main points: timeless lessons, yes. And now, after a long, contemplative journey exploring the depths of Milton's masterpiece Paradise Lost, I know you're probably full of emotions and big ideas. It really is a monumental work, both challenging and mind-opening, isn't it? But don't worry, because, as always, I've distilled the essence, the timeless lessons we can carry with us, not only in enjoying literature, but also in applying them to our own lives. These are the 3 main points, 3 precious gems I want you to remember most from this grand, tragic adventure. First core point: free will is the greatest gift, but also the greatest burden. Every choice creates a world. Look at Adam and Eve, or even Satan, the central characters in Milton's epic. They are all given complete freedom to choose. God never forces anyone, not even Satan when he decides to rebel against him. This is the highest expression of love and respect the Creator has for his creatures. It is a priceless gift that allows each individual to shape their own nature and destiny. But what comes with that gift? A crushing responsibility. Adam and Eve choose to eat the forbidden fruit, and the world of innocence is lost forever, replaced by a world of suffering, corruption, and death. Satan chooses pride and disobedience, and he banishes himself to hell, turns himself into the Lord of Darkness, and transforms part of the universe into a place full of torment and despair. You see, every choice, however small, draws a new boundary line, creating a different world. A world of innocence or a world of fallenness. A world of heaven or a world of hell. The lesson here is cherish your freedom, but at the same time, be deeply aware of the creative power of each decision you make. We are building our own world every day, every minute, through each thought and each action. Are we living a life led by convenience, or by conscious choices, even when they're hard? That is a question I think we each need to answer for ourselves. Second core point: pride leads to downfall, while humility, acceptance, and correction are the path to restoration. This is perhaps one of the strongest and clearest messages, illustrated vividly through the figure of Satan in Paradise Lost. Satan, once one of the brightest and most powerful angels, falls not because he lacks ability or intellect, but because of his enormous ego, his pride that cannot bear to stand below anyone, even his own creator. That arrogance turns an angel into the Lord of Hell, into the eternal enemy of God and humankind. It is the root of all sin and all downfall. In contrast, look at Adam and Eve after they sin. At first there is blame, resentment, fear, and shame. But in the end, they face deep remorse, accept the consequences of their actions, and seek forgiveness. This humility, the ability to admit mistakes and bravely correct them, is the path to restoration and salvation, even if it is not a complete return to what was before. They still must leave the Garden of Eden, but they carry hope and the promise of redemption with them. In our modern world, where the individual ego is often exalted and confidence sometimes crosses into arrogance, we easily forget the value of humility. Sometimes saying "I was wrong" or "I need help" is actually the greatest expression of strength, not weakness. Let's learn from Satan to avoid the destructive pride, and learn from Adam and Eve to find the way back when we stumble. Humility is not thinking less of yourself, it is thinking of yourself less, to make room for truth and growth. Third core point: true paradise is not a lost location, but an inner state that can be found and cultivated, even in adversity. And this last point is an immensely comforting and hopeful message, especially in the difficult times of life. Paradise, as suggested by the title of the work, seems to be lost. Adam and Eve are expelled from the Garden of Eden, a place of perfection and innocence, a loss that nothing can make whole again. But is this the end of their happiness and peace? Not at all. Milton subtly suggests that true paradise is not just a physical place, a beautiful garden called Eden. It is an inner state, an inner peace, a connection with faith, with hope, and with love. Even as they face a harsh world outside Eden, Adam and Eve still carry that inner paradise. They have their love for each other, the promise of future redemption, and the ability to find beauty and meaning even in suffering and hard labor. They learn to accept and live with their new circumstances, to cultivate a new, meaningful life, even though it is no longer the perfection of Eden. In our lives, we often search for happiness outside ourselves, a better job, a perfect relationship, some material possession. But even when we attain these things, we sometimes still feel empty or unsatisfied. Perhaps true paradise is the ability to find serenity, joy, and meaning from within, regardless of outer circumstances. It is the capacity to cultivate a garden of the soul, where peace is always present, even when storms rage outside the window. Paradise is not a place to return to, it is a place to build inside, day by day, with gratitude, love, and patience. These 3 points, I hope, will stay with you for a long time, not just as literary analysis, but as guiding stars for our lives. Paradise Lost is not just an ancient story about a fall. It is a mirror reflecting our choices, challenges, and hopes, we who are searching for meaning and happiness in this life. I truly hope you won't stop at simply watching this video, but will deeply ponder what we've discussed. Reflect on your free will, on the moments when pride may lead you astray, and on where you can find your own paradise, right here, right now. Thank you for accompanying me on this inspiring journey. See you in the next videos, where we'll continue to explore more stories and valuable lessons. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, so you don't miss any interesting content. Goodbye and see you again. Wonderful, my friends. We have gone through a truly profound journey together, haven't we? From the depths of hell to the scene of paradise lost, from the pain of the fall to the longing to regain the light. John Milton's Paradise Lost has truly touched the deepest parts of our souls. It is not just an ancient story, it is a mirror reflecting the inner struggles of each of us, in any era, no matter who you are or where you are in the world. And now, I don't want us to stop at just reading or listening, or simply analyzing literature. I want us to turn these grand ideas into conversations, into truly meaningful, personal, and intimate sharing. Because even though we live in a modern world full of noise and complexity, the big questions that Milton raised centuries ago still retain their full power and still echo in each of our minds. So here is what I want to ask you, a question that perhaps each of us has asked ourselves in some way after exploring Paradise Lost together. Do you feel that there is some lost paradise in your own life? It might be an unfinished dream you cherished in childhood, a precious relationship that ended and left regret, or even a version of yourself that you feel you have lost along the way of growing up, while facing the challenges and pressures of life. And more importantly, what are you doing to find it again? How are you rebuilding your own Eden, little by little, each day? Share your most honest thoughts in the comments below. I believe that each story, each personal experience of ours, big or small, is a valuable piece of the puzzle that helps us understand one another better, understand human nature, and understand this challenging world. Don't hesitate to open your heart, because this is a safe space for us to reflect together. If you feel that this video and our other literary explorations have given you something meaningful, a fresh perspective on life, or simply a quiet moment to reflect, connect with yourself, then don't hesitate to show your support. Your interaction is an enormous source of encouragement for me and for the channel. Click the like button so this video can reach more people who are also searching for deeper meaning in life. And most importantly, click subscribe so you don't miss any of our future adventures. Together, we will continue this exciting mission to humanize more classic works, to explore the hidden layers of meaning through a psychological and philosophical lens, not just to understand books, but to understand ourselves and the world around us. And to make this journey richer, more diverse, and more reflective of what our community truly cares about, I really hope to receive suggestions from you. What book would you like us to explore next through the lens of psychology and philosophy? It might be another classic work that has troubled you for a long time, or a contemporary book full of the spirit of our times, reflecting current social issues. Or perhaps a philosopher you'd like us to decode together. Boldly send your ideas in the comments. Your participation is the greatest motivation for our channel to develop, to become more multi-dimensional, and to become a truly vibrant community of knowledge, where every voice is heard and valued. Thank you so much for accompanying me on this journey back to the Lost Paradise. I am really looking forward to hearing your stories and to continuing with you as we explore new horizons of knowledge. See you in the next videos, where we will continue our journey of exploration and reflection together.